This Rolex diver watch really reminds me of a vintage Rolex Submariner, and I'll show you why in a bit, but let me start off by featuring this watch. It really feels like a hefty, sturdy diver watch. Let's start off with the dial. You have big lume plots like you'd expect for a diver watch. Very easy to read, especially with the matte black background for the dial. The bezel here has a two-tone finish. You can see we have gold and black, and it's a unidirectional turn. And you can see it still turns quite nicely. Over here on the side, we have the crown guards as well as a screw down crown, which still works. I actually don't like screw down crowns because when you go into vintage watches, a lot of these screw down crowns are broken. The threads have been kind of obliterated, so you can't screw it down anymore. But this one still works. You can still go ahead and change the time. Let's see, you can change the time forward and backward. Of course, it doesn't have hacking though, so this movement, it's not as a premium movement enough to have hacking, but there is still hand winding, which is nice, and we can screw it back in here. Other features of this watch, you can see there's a complete brushed finish all around. There is a high polish over here. You can see there is some signs of wear, but no major gashes on the sides. Go to this side as well. You can see that two-tone look. The crown is gold, but we have polished sides. But the vast majority of this watch is brushed, and it does feel super hefty. This is not a cheap feeling watch. It's not a light feeling watch, because here, not only is it stainless steel here, the stainless steel bracelet has solid links, not rolled links, not, they didn't cheap out on it. It doesn't jingle like a rolled link bracelet would. It feels super solid. And we do have a dual locking clasp, which is what you'd expect for a diver watch, and some micro adjust. We have 3 micro adjust links over here. So overall, a very sturdy feeling Citizen diver watch, which is what you want for a diver watch. So here's the watch on my 6-inch wrist. You can see it sort of kind of fits on my wrist. This watch is 42 millimeters in diameter and about 50 millimeters lug to lug. So this is a really chunky boy. It is not a slim diver watch, which again, for diver watches, you want something that has a good presence to it. If you're looking for a watch that's sleek, something that's minimal, something that's not going to pop out, then you're probably looking for a dress watch. So this diver watch is definitely going to be a presence on the wrist. And so now we're going to go back to that question of how come this reminds me of the Rolex Submariner. Well, of course, both watches are diver watches. Both of them have big lume plots. Both of them are sturdy in construction. But the reason why this one in particular reminds me of a vintage Submariner is I believe it's this bezel here. The bezel having these smaller, skinnier numbers on the side, that is more of a characteristic of a vintage Submariner. If you look at the modern Submariners, the numbers are a lot bigger, but the vintage ones, basically the bezel is just less prominent on those vintage models. So that's why this watch reminds me of a vintage Submariner. So I'm not going to show this watch in complete darkness, but I did shoot some light at it. You can already see the lume is starting to show off. If I kind of just cover using my hand here, you can see that the lume is still working pretty well. I think this watch is about 10 years old. I think this watch was released around the early 2010s. There's not too much information about this watch in particular online, but again, it still looks like a really nice watch. Also forgot to mention it is water resistant to 200 meters, which again is what you expect for a diver watch. I think overall, there's just 2 main downsides. The first thing is that there's no hacking. So like I showed before, if you try and change the time, the watch will continue ticking. And again, for some more affordable movements, that will be common. And of course, if you have a Rolex Submariner, the watch will stop ticking when you adjust the time. And the second thing is you can't see it too much, but you can start to see a little bit when I change the angle. The crystal has a few scratches on it. This is a mineral crystal, so it's not acrylic, meaning you cannot buff it out. And it's not sapphire, meaning that it's not highly scratch resistant. It just has some scratch resistance, but definitely if you bang this on a rock or against the dirt, or even against the table, this might scratch. So there are a few scratches on it, not too many, and thankfully the watch is still quite legible, but do keep in mind that mineral crystal does scratch easier. And that's kind of a criticism of Citizen and Seiko, is just that mineral crystal is like not soft enough like plastic crystals like acrylic. It's not soft enough to buff out yourself, and it's not scratch resistant enough that it won't get scratches. So that is my video on the Citizen Diver watch. Thank you so much for watching. Chances are you've never seen this watch until today, but I hope that by now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you have been convinced that Citizen does sell some pretty interesting mechanical watches. And on that note, be sure to subscribe for more videos. And as always, I will see you guys next time.